Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from forensic cold case excavations, weaponized missing person psychological traps, and the crime scene laboratory standoffs of investigative thrillers, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of legacy asset resurgence, weaponized historical guilt traps, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of a disgraced former investigator asset running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of an explosive New York tracking matrix, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating, trust-shattering phantom resurrection, with Nobody's Fool, the exceptional, pulse-pounding psychological thriller masterpiece engineered by the absolute, undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking narrative misdirection, double-blind family conspiracies, and high-velocity suburban dread, Harlan Coben. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a fierce, deeply compromised primary investigator asset running an unyielding redemption loop, a ghost asset from an international past timeline running a clandestine evasion routine, and an absolute defense against a ruthless elite institutional threat network collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological thrillers, where an endangered, hyper-observant male protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of overturned judicial verdicts, corrupt high-society intimidation campaigns, and a deadly ring of active personal frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised urban jungle, where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated might-school classroom boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner network, and where the author utilizes an incandescent disgraced former cop recognizes the girlfriend he thought he unintentionally murdered 22 years ago, sitting at the back of his criminology night class, unearthing a fatal conspiracy diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits, this book is engineered to lock you in. Coben completely dominates the high-precision past-sin reckoning meets suffocating identity erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre fargs like Gillian Flynn, Linwood Barclay, Michael Connolly, and David Baldacci, while treating realistic legal firm arrangements, complex student-investigator alliances, and protective high-density tracking grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse asset, former NYPD detective Sami Kearse, operating under a severe calculation handicap of severe professional disgrace, mountain-high debt logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a psychopathic mastermind's localized database. Behind Sami's rigorous surveillance routing footprints, defensive low-level investigation logs, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried past timeline leverage, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. His collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following his catastrophic career liquidation linked to the powerful elite underworld, his entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an encroaching historical threat network, parsing complex behavioral shifts in a reopened homicide file involving his murdered cop fiancée Nicole, and shielding his vulnerable new family sanctuary note from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches his active scanning perimeter. While teaching a night school course to a ragtag group of aspiring sleuths, Sami looks to the back of the pavilion and locks eyes with a living phantom. Sitting in the shadows is Anna, the very woman he met during a backpacking run in Fuengirola, Spain over 2 decades ago, whom he woke up next to covered in blood, holding a knife, and believing her to be permanently deleted. Before he can execute a security intercept sequence, the asset bolts into the night. Behind her sudden resurrection and elite behavioral mapping style lies an intricate matrix of a massive missing heiress identity shift, a history of targeted institutional frame-ups, and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint linked to the ultra-wealthy Belmont dynasty. As the hostile adversarial investigation phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a dual mystery timeline, the unauthorized discovery of hidden corporate records and overturned judicial verdicts reveals that his entire life path's ruin was an explicitly engineered trap. The standard boundaries of routine private investigation and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonist run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. He is thrust directly into an active invisible war where a highly manipulative shadow network launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress his survival data stream and execute his complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the large evening lecture halls, dark city alleyways, and private fortified residential rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone.
Our protective, hyper-vigilant hero is forced to deploy his massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve his focus before his adversary's relentless calculation-heady proximity containment phase permanently deletes his boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy deep digital evidence manipulation loops, continuous physical intimidation campaigns via elite enforcers, and persistent dominance to shatter his defense, only to realize his hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of hidden Spanish police registries, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching adversary behind standard architectural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at his reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the high society predator network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Harlan Coben reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial street ambush or managing an invasive internal audit. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and psychopathic supremacy. While our central protagonists smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fierce, deeply protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building night school alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure his sanctuary, our resilient hero must unleash his absolute, unyielding defense of his final boundary lines. It is a psychological thriller, urban fugitive noir, legacy conspiracy mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency one-classroom glance triggers a fatal international conspiracy showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Coben writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, wet New York asphalt, cold terminal screens, dark adrenaline, and pure unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary standalone novel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic, modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Nobody's Fool is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.